All right, good morning, folks, and welcome back. Today is May the 15th, 2025, time's 10 a.m., and we're going to open this meeting back up from yesterday. With that being said, we did not officially close public comments yesterday, so we're going to start off with public comments again this morning. However, if you spoke yesterday, we're not going to, you do not have another turn today. So anybody that's here present that would like to speak that did not speak yesterday in public comments, we will start with that now. So we'll open it up for that. Good morning. Is it green? Yeah, you want to
it's green.
A little closer.
A little closer.
There you go. That's
okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. So thank you for continuing with public comment. I've been traveling for the past 3 weeks and got in late last night, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Hopefully my comments will be orderly because I got up early this morning to try and put them together. I attended all of the Planning Commission meetings where they overwhelmingly voted to recommend denying approval because in their mind, Sundance Solar's application does not meet all the criteria set forth in Elbert County's 1041 regulations. I also listened to the meeting yesterday while I was at the airport, and there were a few discrepancies and things that I wanted to point out today. There was a study done by Berkeley University, about property values, and Commissioner Buck, I know you spoke to that yesterday. Their study finds that there is a decrease in property values with solar projects, decreasing property values ranging from 1.5% to 6%, with greater devaluation found in rural areas where large-scale photovoltaic projects are placed on previously agricultural land, which this project would be. During the presentation, Zach stated that the panels would be washed every 3 years, yet the application that they submitted to you says that the panels will be washed 1 to 2 times a year. I did some research this morning. Most articles say that they should be washed 2 to 4 times a year, and NREL says that in dusty areas, they need to be washed more than once a year. Now, they say that they're bringing water in for this entire project, but most likely won't this water be pulled from the same aquifer? It might not be in Elbert County, but isn't it still the same aquifer that Elbert County relies on? They talked about the panels withstanding hail up to 1 inch, up to 1 inch. We all live in Elbert County. We know that we frequently get hail much greater than 1 inch. And just yesterday it was reported that there was 1.25 inch hail in Erie, Colorado. So we get the same type of weather, and that was just yesterday. Yesterday, one of the public commenters who is, I believe he's with the construction firm, said that Sundance Solar would be maintaining this project for the life of it for 40 years. During the Planning Commission meetings, Zach admitted after some intense questioning that some of their other projects have been sold to other corporations. So we don't know for a fact that they will be maintaining it for 40 years. On my travels, I was in Kentucky and I toured a prairie preserve where they had animals that have been extirpated, that have been pushed out of their local environment, and they had bison, elk, and deer that have been pushed out of the area. And the guide is finishing up her doctorate in wildlife management, and she made the comment that prairies are the most endangered ecosystem on Earth. And I found that hard to believe. I was like so surprised. So I went back that night and did some research, and sure enough, prairie ecosystems are the most threatened ecosystem that we have right now. And a lot of that is due to habitat fragmentation. So I pulled up some articles, one from the National Park Service, that said today the most fertile and well-watered region, the prairie, is less than 4% of its original area. This makes it one of the rarest and most endangered ecosystems in the world. Rocky Mountain PBS had an article where they quoted a U.S. Forest Service researcher who said that even intermittent development like roads, fences, and structures disrupt animals' access to vital resources like water, hunting grounds, and migratory pathways. Do we want Elbert County to continue to contribute to this fragmentation, or do we want to preserve our prairie environment? So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments this morning? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Beverly Durant. I live at 40968 Kiowa Bennett Road. I had to leave the meeting yesterday, but I did listen to parts of the comment, and I also sent an email to all three of you that I was told would be part of the record. I'm not going to go through that email again. I want to remind you, look at everyone that was here yesterday and came back at last minute for today. You were elected and have a duty and a responsibility to protect Elbert County for now and for all of its citizens in the future. I beg you, please, listen to your citizens that elected you. Preserve the beauty of our county. Do not let this project go through. It will destroy that area for 40 years and even more in the future. So I respectfully ask you, please deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Going once. That, all right.
Okay, so my name is Tammy, and I live up on Skyview.
Can you give us your full address, please? It's just for the record.
37210. Yeah, that's
Right.
it. Yeah. So one thing that I do not feel has been addressed is a pacemaker. The next door neighbor, right next to the field, Larry, has a pacemaker. And how will this affect his life? Being able to, will he still be able to go to his fence line? What else, what can he do and what can he not do anymore living right next door to a large-scale solar farm? From my research, a small-scale solar farm, you can be within a certain radius. I want to say right around 700 feet. But this is pretty close to his property. So 700 feet, even on a small scale of 600 solar panels, does that put it back to his house or somebody else's house? We have not had the opportunity yet to contact cardiologists and find out more about what distance he needs to be from a pacemaker or from a solar field. But he is not to be in front of a microwave or very close. He's to keep his cell phone and other pockets not near his pacemaker. Otherwise, that can cost him his life. So I was just wondering if this has been something that has been observed or addressed throughout this whole entire time. So a pacemaker is somebody's life at that point.
Okay.
So I think that as a citizen, and as a neighbor, he has a right to life.
Good. Noted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public comments? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Elizabeth Patton. My address is 36543 Happiness Trail, Kiowa. I was in a car fight, trapped in my car 20 years ago, and I have a permanent lung medical condition that is still lasting today. And the reason for that condition was the smoke that I was inhaling from my car, from the battery and the cables, the wires from the car fire. I am still affected over 20 years later from that. And I don't know, I tried to look and see what kind of wires and things were inside the cables, but the batteries and all that, to me, is just a bigger, huger thing that's in a car. And I'm still affected 20 years later, 25 years later. I don't know what this is going to do to the people around, and we're one of them. So please don't vote for this. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, we will close public comments at this time. This time we'll ask the applicants, or give them the opportunity to come up and respond to the citizens' comments from yesterday and today. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to respond to the comments we heard yesterday. A lot of good comments, and we take them very seriously. And you know, as good neighbors and long-term partners in this community, we would work our very hardest and guarantee that the safety of the community is protected. So it's a concern of ours, and we'd like to respond to the comments that we heard yesterday. We spent a number of hours last night, as you'd imagine, collecting our notes and comparing them and developing responses. I went through a couple of pizzas, no beers, but we did spend some time, you know, compiling, and we developed responses to every one of the points that we heard, and we feel like we've got comprehensive responses to them. We've and let me just list them. Fire safety in kind of an order that we think maybe of order of importance or interest to the community. Fire safety, decommissioning and recycling, property values, location of the facility, glint and glare, a reflection from the facility, coordination with the FAA and DOD on the permitting front, equipment weather rating, equipment composition, dust mitigation during construction and during operation, fire department support and impact fees, wildlife and environmental considerations, and drainage. So I don't know if that's a comprehensive list. Certainly we intended it to be.
It looks like my list, but I would ask, can you adjust that mic a little bit so they can get a better volume for you? If you don't
How's
mind?
that?
Yeah, you can move it up a little bit if you want, but it's, want to be able to hear. I
Okay.
apologize, that thing's a little weird.
Okay, how's this?
That's perfect, thank you.
Excellent. So, you know, going through this list, I think we can dive into a lot of the points that are down the list as the questions come up from the commission. But those top four, fire safety, decommissioning, property values, and then location and conformance with the comprehensive plan would seem to be the top four that we'd addressed first, dive deep, and then take your recommendation on how to proceed from there. So with that, fire safety. We heard a lot of great comments, thoughtful comments from the community yesterday about fire risk specifically about the solar facility and the BESS components, the battery energy storage system components. And it comes down to a question of whether or not the facility will have greater fire risk than the surrounding prairie, or the prairie lands, the grasslands as they stand today, compared to what the facility would be, or what it would do. And as we've dug into it, the answer is no. The solar facility and the BESS components will have lower risk than open grasslands for the following reasons. Currently, open grasslands present fire risk, especially during high wind events. During operations, solar projects are going to use low-growing or well-maintained native grass species, such as western wheatgrass, grama grasses. I think we listed at least 8 different native Colorado grass species that would be used for the facility. Those are mowed, kept low. It's gonna look more like a lawn within the facility than a prairie. So the fire risk coming into the facility is minimal. In addition to that, we're gonna have a fire perimeter, as required by the fire department, around the facility itself. There'll be a fire break within the fence line that will prevent any fire from coming into the facility from the surrounding grasslands. So once the fire gets into the facility, the equipment itself is not flammable. The panels themselves are designed to be extremely heat resistant. They sit in the sun all day. The back contact panel is not flammable, not designed to burn. It's designed to resist flames. So if it did get into the facility, it would extinguish. So this is a really important part. So if you recall the shape of the facility, backwards 7 maybe, any fire that's coming across the prairie from the west, for instance, blowing east, this would be an effective fire break for the communities to the east. That fire is not going to go through our facility and is not going to burn the homes to the east to the extent it stops at us. Houses to the north are going to be stopped from the fire coming from the south going north. So it's something I'm proud of personally, and I think we can feel safe that the components themselves, the facility itself, is not going to propagate that fire. So we'll talk about battery chemistry and fire risk there in a little bit, but I think we also want to address evacuation routes if there were a fire in the area. Frankly, CR 154 is going to be safer because the fire risk will be lower along there. And we have state-of-the-art 24/7 monitoring and cameras that will alert the fire department immediately, arguably faster than it would be otherwise phoning it in by 911. So with that, I'd like to introduce the Kiowa Fire Chief, Chris Gay. He's here to support. Excuse me. I'm not the chief. Sorry, I just gave you a promotion, but speak to this point.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Captain Chris Gay. I'm not the chief, just a captain. But obviously, with the structure going in place, they're trying to mitigate any actions that could cause potential harm. With some of these mitigating factors going in place, it's actually going to help reduce some of the risks involved should there not be a facility. Most pointedly is the AI cameras. That technology is going to be very critical in early alerting. To augment that, we also have other technologies in place for evacuation processes using reverse 911 and code red, send out messages should the evacuation process need to be activated. Past that, the structure itself has a lot of mitigating factors being built into it, both inside and outside of it. With those additional factors, we believe that it actually is helping decrease some of the risk involved in that area. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to completely make anything 100% risk-free, but I akin this project to, if a semi-tanker crashed at that intersection, what would that cause, and what similarities would be, to that situation versus having a structure there. Do you gentlemen have any questions?
I appreciate you coming back. I had some questions here as I was studying stuff last night. Let's see if I can find them real quick. But one in particular that has been a concern raised is evacuation. Obviously, there's a threat of fire currently, even without the facility there. What would be the procedure the fire department would use if there was a fire on the more western end of 154 for the residents that are on the eastern part of 154?
So obviously, life preservation is our number one concern. When any type of incident like that would occur, we're going to call on our mutual aid response partners who would be auto-toned. So we'd have Elizabeth coming, we'd have Rattlesnake coming, more than likely Agate coming with something that big. Those mutual aid partners we're going to stitch together and create an action plan of how to attack the fire. Meanwhile, we're going to be activating the reverse 911 system for the regular homes and activating the code red system for cellular people who are signed up for that service to alert them of the impending issue. One thing I do want to say, though, is that the one-end road would pose a fire danger no matter what the situation was. And honestly, it's something that should be looked at regardless whether this project goes forward or not. Should the Marshall Fire happen here, that's obviously going to be a large concern, and we should look at making a second egress out of that area.
But you have a plan in place now if there were a fire. Has this cause you to make any changes to that plan if this were to go forward?
Let me see if I'm understanding your correction. If we were to have a fire in that place without the facility, we currently do have procedures in place that we would activate to mitigate any life risks. Obviously, we're going to have a cascading event that's going to be very dynamic in nature depending on how that fire behaves, and we're going to call in the appropriate resources, whether it be state, federal, or just our local response partners.
Okay. Thank you. I do appreciate you coming back today.
Thank you.
I've got a question for you before you go, if you don't mind, please.
Yes, sir.
So, given that area, where's your closest water source? I know that, and I'm a retired fire chief, so I understand the service. Tanker trucks, what are you going to be relying on? Just in the event that this was approved and they would have a fire there, what kind of water sources do you have?
Well, the largest water source we have is a static cistern at Station 2 that currently holds 2,000 gallons. It's checked every Sunday to make sure that's pumping appropriately and that's properly filled. On top of that, we'd be bringing type 6 brush trucks, more than likely 2 to the event, which have approximately 300 gallons on board. And then we'll have the tender coming from Elizabeth that carries, I believe, 4,500 gallons on itself. We'd be setting up shuttle operations so that people could go to one spot to absorb water and then continuously having tenders come back to refill that shuttle point.
Okay, so I guess my point is, and we can talk about this later, but if you have a large fire there, that's still not a lot of water. I mean, that you're going to be bringing in. You'd have to set up, tanks and so forth, and shuttle water is what you would have to do. But you're shooting 300-400 gallons of water a minute or more. Most likely, that's not going to be a lot of water. So response times are going to take quite a bit to get there as well. So I just curious what the plan would be.
Absolutely. And as the event spiraled or progressed, obviously we have other resources we could call in from the state, whether it be the air tankers and other aerial resources to put a large amount of water down quickly.
So to get to the point, if this were approved, would it be possible for these area departments and everybody to come up with a plan? So if there's a fire alarm that goes off at this location, it's an automatic response and there's no delay waiting on the first department to arrive and so forth. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. A pre-incident survey plan and pre-incident action plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mike, you got any questions?
Yeah, just real quick, and I'll revert back to the email that I saw in the file. It was from the fire chief, so you may not be able to speak to it. They talked about an inherent hazard, fire impact fees despite the inherent hazards up to and including wildfires, that there was going to be no impact fee charged despite the inherent hazard. And at that time that this was sent, they weren't aware if there was any battery storage on site. So the question was, will there be battery storage on site? And there will be no charge for fire impact fees despite the inherent hazards. So that caught my eye, was the inherent hazards. And without even knowing about the battery storage on site, can you speak to inherent hazards associated with this type of project?
So I specifically spoke to Jerry Lemansky, the chief, yesterday about that email, and he said that the word inherent hazard is something that he used, whether it be any facility, an oil derrick, because everything has some sort of inherent hazard whenever you bring any industrial element to it. With the hazards themselves, he does not feel that that produce a new or greater risk due to the mitigating factors that they're putting in place.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to, it's probably in the past now, but Commissioner Schroeder, to your question earlier about evacuation route, again, that's, I think Captain Gay addressed it, but I wanted to mention 2 other things that haven't been brought up yesterday or today. And one of those things is our current site plan, which showcases an entrance gate on Kiowa Bennett as well. Obviously, there is that one on 154, but in the event of something of this magnitude, we would actually still be able to entrance the site without even touching 154 and cutting across the entire site, just on Kiowa Bennett. And then in addition to that, and speaking with the landowner and some others, there is actually a core easement as well. So there is, it's not a state regulated or any sort of county road, but there is a core easement that goes from Kiowa Bennett Road all the way east into Comanche Creek Road. And so that is a path, in the event of a massive emergency, that is something that we would be able to use. That is something that Corps would 100%, as being a part of this project, give us the authority to use if it ever came to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Wanted to answer any questions you may have had about my previous comments, but otherwise wanted to talk a little bit about battery chemistry and the components of the storage system and answer any questions there. We've got our engineer on hand as well to step in on technical points. But what actually happens when there's a fire with a BESS facility, battery energy storage system. And the answer is that there are system redundancies and design factors that limit the risk and propagation. Importantly, any battery fire these days is not put out with water. So there's no water involved in extinguishing a battery fire. It's extremely important. There were comments yesterday, good comments about runoff into Kiowa Creek and other factors that do not play into this scenario. So the battery chemistry that would be used for these stored battery systems is called, nickel manganese cobalt. So it's an older battery storage technology. It's still used plenty. It's the batteries that we've got in our phones, in our laptops, and in electric vehicles. So that nickel manganese cobalt battery is very widely used in other places. It's a more flammable technology and prone to failure than the technology that we will be using in these battery systems. The technology we use is called lithium iron phosphate. It is less flammable, less volatile, and in fact, a battery system that's stored or that's installed on site and operating regularly and according to plan is less likely to combust than a cell phone that you drop out of your bag on that prairie. This is more likely to ignite that prairie than these facilities will. This is less flammable than the laptop that you charge and put in your kid's backpack and send to school. So we're driven by safety. We're tuned into the safety requirements. We're tuned into NFPA 855 and UL 9540A, which is specific to spacing requirements between the containers. Looked into our insurance requirements, and they've got very clear spacing requirements for between the containers. So that's relevant. We talked about that yesterday, how insurance providers and financing providers, as well as our own company code, drive us to that maximum safety. So we are driven to safety by those codes and by our insurance providers here. So the battery fires themselves at facilities are extremely rare. So there have been only 23 fire-related incidents in the last 10 years at operating battery storage facilities. Some of those are based on the old nickel manganese cobalt technology. The new ones, much less risk. And as we've seen battery storage facilities penetrate the market, we've seen them connect to the grid, we've seen those fire incidents drop over time. We're getting better and better. We're figuring out how to do it. And that's why these systems are as safe as they've ever been. So current technology, safety standards, fire suppression requirements, first responder training that we just talked about, and all approved, as company and regulators have gained more experience with these large facilities, and we are putting that into the facility that we're proposing to you here today. So any questions about that?
No, I'll just make a quick comment. I get it about the water and the battery and that kind of thing, but this is a county with volunteer fire departments, and we're limited on resources. So in coming from a volunteer department to a paid department and being a firefighter, and I'm sure that other firefighter can understand, water's all we got, and that's what we know. So just to make that point.
Yeah, absolutely. We understand that. To be direct about it, we're setting up this community working group as a fund to support community needs, and I see one here.
Right.
So again, I
just want to make it clear. That's all. But thank you. I mean, we go by surround and drown. That's what we do. So.
Oh yeah. So we're all about fire safety, and we do think it's going to prevent fires from happening.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment if you have a second. What was the cause of the 23 fires in the last 10 years? Do you kind of have any idea what some of those, I'm sure probably different causes, but do you have any idea of what some of those were?
Yeah, go for
All right, largely it's NMC batteries. They are an older technology. Sorry, I'm Annie Rosser for Cypress Creek. NMC batteries, especially Moss Landing, which I think someone specifically mentioned yesterday, this was a very large fire that it was a building-based technology. So instead of container-based, they had all of these batteries stacked inside a building, and then on top of that, they had a water suppression system. And so when they had overheating of cells, their water system actually triggered incorrectly, and it broke off and sprayed their batteries with water, which caused a fire, because water and electricity do not go well together. And the fact that it was in a building made it propagate very easily. We do not have that type of batteries, so our batteries are more stable. They don't go through thermal runaway as quickly. It takes them a much higher heat before they actually even hit thermal runaway. And we have redundancies on redundancies to prevent that. So in case cells start overheating, we have an auto cooling system that kicks in. And then if that fails, the battery is auto shut down. These are AI functions that are like automatic within the container itself. And we also have warnings and alarms that will automatically trigger at our 24/7 control center, which will allow us to also react swiftly and make sure we're shutting down the correct pieces. Besides that, if that still continues, so if the shutting it down fails to stop it from thermal runaway, the actual design within the container also prevents propagation from cell to cell. So it is actually very hard. The most they've had in testing when they pushed it through thermal runaway, because it never went into thermal runaway in testing without forcing it. When they did force it, the most that happened was 4 cells within the module, caught, not on fire, but went through thermal runaway. There was never any flames noticed, only smoke in the batteries as they tested them, as they forced them into failure.
Okay. I'm not an engineer, but I was looking for the most likely cause of those 23. I think you used one example, and I was just kind of saying, yeah, the majority of the time they were caused by this, or it was by the older style of batteries. So I was looking for a simple answer. Sorry about that.
The answer is overheating based on the older batteries. They do not have as high of a heat ability tolerance.
Okay. Well, and one of my concerns, I'm just going to follow up with that, is we are in the process of doing a comprehensive updating of our rules and regulations. We don't have anything in our current rules and regulations in regards to battery storage. So I guess we're relying on, I don't know what we're relying on for the recommendation for approval without those rules and regulations. So that we're kind of going by the studies and experts that you guys are providing. We haven't done any of that work. So my concern is, and maybe Jennifer can answer that a little bit for me.
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. So our land use table from a zoning and use perspective regulates solar facilities. It does not specify whether that is with or without batteries, but we've certainly understand that current facilities contain both typically. And so while there's not specific regulations to the battery component, the battery storage component of the facility as a whole is regulated, and we do rely on our outside departments and agencies to help provide that expertise in terms of fire, emergency management, all the other types of components. And so I would just explain that that's how that was reviewed by the county, is through the current regulations as well as all of our outside experts.
Okay, because I know some counties, they have a specific guidelines and rules and regulations in regards to strictly battery storage, and then they can have 2 applications, one for battery storage, one for solar, and they kind of do it that way. So I think moving forward, we definitely need to add that when we do a rewrite and put battery storage in that so we can have something to follow. I don't have any documents to even look at to see if these guys are in compliance with our policies.
Right, so
Because they're
our
non-existent.
policies that are in place would be related to a solar facility as a whole, correct?
Okay, thank you.
And I'll end on this comment too on that note. This is the batteries that we use at Cypress Creek. Again, as Jennifer mentioned, most solar plants now have hybrid projects, batteries containing them. And you know, in counties of this, if it's not clearly called out, we definitely are following federal, state, all recommendations, NFPA. It's all requirements, and it only, you know, it can only hurt us if we don't follow those things. So that is definitely our requirement. With that too, I think we'd like to move to the next point, which is decommissioning. That was another one of the main themes that came up. And so the decommissioning bond that we've talked about in the presentation leaves the county with zero risk. That is the point of the decommissioning bond. The decommissioning obligation with the county ensures that. It is required, as mentioned, to be updated every 5 years for things like inflation or anything, you know, technology changes or anything like that, to make sure that the actual decommissioning of the technology or of the site in general is accurately represented. That's the point of the every 5 years. Things can change, as we've seen. And that is done by a third-party expert. It's not Cypress Creek bias. It's not anything. It is an actual company who does that study to make sure that it is accurately represented if we needed to decommission the solar and or the battery. And what happens after decommission is another question that popped up yesterday. Will the panels be recycled and things like that? And so panels, at the end of the project life cycle, project of this nature, about 40 years, panels are roughly 80% still at their max production. And so what that means is they can be repowered on, you know, similar project. They can go to homes. They can be refurbished. Or if none of that works out or is not needed, we can recycle the panels. So companies are coming out. It's a growing industry. Companies like Solar Cycle, they now provide an affordable cost to recycle panels, and they actually are able to recycle up to 95% of modern panels, including the panels that we're planning to use for this project. I don't know if you guys had, that's all I had on decommissioning, if there's more questions related to that topic. Okay. Do you want to talk property values? Property values? I'll start and we can tag team it. So property values was the next one that came up. Main question being, do solar projects decrease neighboring property values? So we have a couple different sources stating from, you know, American Clean Power, Science Network, all sorts of things that have come out, and those links have been added, pretty much directly talking about the fact that, you know, surrounding solar or adjacency to a solar panel project, especially in the Midwest United States, has actually seen 0.5 to 2% increase in property value surrounding. I do also want to mention, and it was in the packet on the record, but we do also have a support letter from a project we developed in Arapahoe County. And that was a support letter from a neighbor there that actually talked about the fact that it's been a great, excellent, quiet neighbor. They own the Kiowa gun range. And they're not a part of the project, but they are adjacent to the project. And they essentially talk about the self-sufficiency of the project. They've seen a lot of the benefits come to Arapahoe County that we've promised in our presentation. And it is a quiet, self-sufficient neighbor, and they actually told us verbatim they'd rather have that than X amount of other things next to them. Results can vary by region, and so that's not saying that anything that anybody has said is not, you know, true. That a lot of it is, you know, a lot of studies do point out there's just really no adverse impact, or it's not totally able to be conclusive. But we have found studies, and we have sent those across that actually do showcase 0.5 to 2% increase in property values. I don't know if you want to mention the bottom here.
Yep. So there, I think just as Zach said, the studies vary by region, and projects vary, you know, between projects as well. Some have different fencing color or not as far set back from the roads. Some property values that are closer to projects may be affected more than those that are farther away. From what I have digested in reading these studies, you know, houses that are within a half a mile are more likely to be impacted, more likely to see some property value decrease. That is often temporary, and it does not last longer than a few years. So, and in homes that are 2 miles or greater than 1 mile away, see very little, negligible, statistically insignificant impact. on property values. So I think it's a perception issue. It varies by region, by project. I think yesterday we heard a comment from Jim Marshall talking about the housing development across from the Pioneer Solar Project in Arapahoe County. Those property values went up over time. So up, down, if it's in the middle, it's fairly little, one way or the other. Any questions, comments?
I have a question. If you were adjacent to that project or this project, and you were looking at a lot there, maybe a 35-acre parcel, would you buy there versus somewhere else with a different view than solar panels? You personally, what would you do?
I'm a little biased, so I would buy that parcel. I'm a strong supporter of clean power, local power, like this is. So yeah, I'm biased, and to be honest, there are alternatives to solar development. You know, there could be a housing complex or put in on that same site that would be, I think, more intrusive, more traffic, more issues to the neighbors than this solar facility would be. So.
Okay, because I know we had, I think a citizen came in yesterday and spoke. They were concerned because they had some 35-acre parcels, I don't remember what size, but that were adjacent to it, shared a fence line, and were concerned about resale value. That's not within half a mile, that's within a foot, you know.
Yeah.
So that's close, and I think those are legitimate concerns from the citizens. And like every project you said, is different. Every region is different, so it will vary.
I totally agree. I think the experience with Jim Marshall and the facility, or the Pioneer facility and the housing development across the street where prices went up, land values went up, I think is one example of why that
may or may not have been because of that facility.
No.
It could have been for other various reasons.
No, but that's an excellent point. I think it's more irrelevant than it is relevant.
So I have a question, if you don't mind, real quick. So on the, yesterday on the perimeter, we were talking about the perimeter of the property. You would say no trees. I mean, what are we talking about here? Because one of the biggest complaints that I've received from, I don't know, probably 75 phone calls or visits, and it's been about, you know, being able to see these panels out there and it being an eyesore to the people that live there in that area. So what is the plan? Can we talk about that a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, so current plan is not to have the trees due to the water and fire risk. And I think another point too is, and it got brought up several times in the public comment period, a lot of people seem to care about wildlife out here. And as mentioned in the presentation, is there is a balance, and CPW is very firm on that, the Colorado State Parks and Wildlife, between site security and protection of wildlife. And so that 8-foot high fence is that happy medium that they prefer, where things aren't getting trapped, things aren't dying, it's not causing harm to wildlife, but it's also being able to be as harmonious as possible with the surrounding landscape. So that's kind of where that fine line comes into. And you know, that's we're still talking. We just talked to CPW last week, and so these are things that are coming up, but they were fairly adamant about the protection of wildlife in coordination with also site security.
Okay, thank you.
One thing, and not to go backwards, but it's kind of going into the next point, if that's okay with you guys. Commissioner Buck, to your last question that Peter was addressing, I think, you know, with the 35-acre lots, that's what we were talking about. I think that goes into our next point about location. We heard a couple of things about that yesterday, and we hear that. That is something it's been brought up in the community meetings 4, 5, 6 months ago. That's the reason Lauren and I specifically have been coming to this county so many times to meet with landowners, you know, hear the feedback, do the best we can, set our setbacks 10 times the requirements. There are things that have happened due to things like that. It's not just heard in one ear out the other. But at the end of the day, this project is meant to serve Elbert County core customers, all 29,000 of them. And this is, you know, optimal to be on top of a substation. You know, if a project like this is optimal as it is, that really increases, reliability, being that close to the substation. It definitely is not going to, have vast impacts. We're talking about $1 million a mile each mile you're away from a substation to build a project. What that means is higher electricity cost. So the closer you are to substation, the better we can stabilize rates. That's part of this. And then lastly, the likely result of this would be a lot more overhead transmission lines. And I think that was definitely mentioned that people do not want to see those. And so this is a need for Elbert County. This is important for Elbert County. This is important for core system. This is important for everybody in this room and everybody that's not in this room in Elbert County to have local power. And I think, part of that is our community benefit program, making sure that we're coming in, being a partnership. It's important for you guys, but it's also important for us. So just wanted to, and I think the other thing too that got mentioned was also that in 2018 we had a PPA with Core and it fell through. That was also a false comment. We never had an agreement with Core in 2018. That was the whole point of supply versus demand. And so Core has actually come to us in this project and asked, this is the project that can meet the timeline to serve the load. Thank you.
I know we had a Core representative
Yes, sir.
yesterday, and we weren't able to ask him any questions.
I asked him to come back in here today. So
maybe you can, since we're kind of talking about that,
Yes, sir.
maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't. I did drive by the location on Tuesday, and I saw the substation. Is it currently active? Do you know?
It's currently active substation.
And so where is the electricity coming from that it is using through there? What's the source? Do we know the source of that?
Yeah, that's a core question. I'm sorry. Yeah, we don't know exactly.
Did the ultimate source?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. But we can
I was
definitely get the answer to
I was
that.
just curious about that and how that would affect if this came online, where they were getting their current power, if it would just be added on, or if this would be solely servicing the new facility.
Yeah. And again, that's a core question, but I will also add, Core, formerly IREA, used to be a part of Excel or PSCO. So I would assume a lot of that might be being wheeled. Now that they're not a part of PSCO, they are self-procuring their power, which is why they're working with companies directly like us. This is not PSCO related, not Excel related. This is Cypress Creek and Core PPA.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah, so to clarify, I don't know. It sounds like maybe I said something that didn't communicate well. If this project is not approved, there will be a lot more overhead transmission lines. I don't know if I said that correctly or incorrectly. It sounds like maybe my coworkers thought the other way. But this is a project on top of the substation, no overhead transmission lines outside the project fence. It's not going to look like Excel Power Pathway. It is tapping in directly to the substation on site. I think with that being said, in summary, and we can definitely, we wanted to focus on the top comments, and so we can, address more questions as they come. But in summary, I wanted to wrap up with, the county has determined, Elbert County has determined that a solar facility is appropriate in an agricultural zone only. It's the only place you can put a solar project, and that's where we sit for this project. On top of the substation, it's optimal. It is local power, Core customers only. This is part of the master and comprehensive plan that was approved by Elbert County for sites of this nature. As Core mentioned, who knows what will happen in the 2027 to 2031 timeframe if a project that can't meet that timeline is not built. And so this is not only for future citizens. This is not 6 years out. As Core mentioned, this is current. It's current, and then also getting into the future. This is the project that meets those goals. It's going to diversify the portfolio. It's going to make reliable energy. The closer the substation, as mentioned, is not supposed to increase rates. It's really supposed to maintain. This is for everybody in the community. The position the position that we take is a tough one because there is a balance, right? We hear folks. We have to we appreciate the feedback, and I have developed several projects. I've permitted several projects. This community has been excellent about being outspoken in their feedback. And there are things that we have taken internally to the site plan, to McCarthy, who's actually making the finalized site plan, the construction folks. We're telling them things that are coming straight from the community that they probably have maybe seen or not seen before. But this is niche to this community, and we want to make sure that we can provide a partnership and give you guys local power, but also be able to be a community that we're a part of as well. So thank you.
All right, I've got one other question. Captain, if you don't mind, I just one quick question for you, sir. Of course, throwing water on an electrical fire is not appropriate, I get that, but the other concern that we haven't talked about is air supply. Do we have air supply or a vehicle for air supply for our breathing apparatus and so forth? If we were to have an emergency out there that, I mean, you're not going to be out there breathing fresh air, so do we have that type of equipment here in the county?
Correct. And so, just to clarify, I believe you're talking about mobile air supply trailer.
Yes.
We currently do not have one. What we do have is a full complement on every response vehicle, as well as 22 additional bottles back at the station that are always filled, up to 4,400 pounds pressure. Past that, we do not have an additional air supply past those 22 bottles.
So you're looking at about 20 minutes a bottle if they're using it properly.
They're
Hard
going
to
to
say.
be
Just curious. I'm sorry to get down in the weeds too much with that, but that's one of the biggest things that we're going to need in the event that there was an emergency out there. We're just curious. Thank you.
The bottles are ready for 45 minutes, but in true use, you're going to get 30 to 25
Yeah,
minutes.
but when they're sucking it up in a hurry, it's about half that. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, do you have anything else you want to address from the comments yesterday? Anything else, sir?
I don't think so. I do want to repeat that we're here seeking your approval for the project, and we're grateful for your consideration. We're grateful to the Elbert County community for all the interest they've shown in the project, and we've gotten a lot of interest from folks. We've heard concerned citizens here. It's hard to get the supporters to step up and speak of their support for the project, but there are 29,000 people in the community of Elbert County, and this is for all of them. So we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Quick question. On the core easement from the 154 to Comanche Creek, is that a reasonable egress? Can you drive it? Is it maintained?
Yes, sir.
Is it?
You can definitely drive it. Our landowner drives cattle trailers and horse trailers and things of that nature all the way across it.
Okay, so it's not like there's a big drop off, and
No.
just because the wires can go across the easement doesn't mean a vehicle can, but it
not
could.
going to
It could make it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioner Buck, do you have any other questions, sir?
Yeah, I have a number of questions for you. Form number, FAA form number 7460-1, you said you were going to speak to that a little bit in regards to solar glare?
Okay. I'm sorry, were those 2 points, the glint and glare and then the FAA?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, we can address both of those, and I'll call up our environmental expert to talk about the FAA. But for glint and glare, it's a comment that we get often, and our response is very consistent. It's consistent with the glint and glare studies we've done, and from the ones we've read in public comments elsewhere. Sunlight is absorbed by the solar panels. They have non-reflective coating that does not reflect the sunlight.
Yeah.
Sunlight is actually, these are less reflective than the surface of a body of water. So, they're facing the sky when the sun is immediately overhead. The sun would be reflected back. In the morning, they're tilted at 60 degrees, so any sunlight coming in would be reflected upward.
So my only question is, did you file the form?
I'm sorry?
My only question is, did you file the form? It is required. So I just wanted to make sure it was filed. That's my only question.
Hi, yes, we filed the notice of criteria form through the FAA, which then required us to have the additional form that was submitted that actually then did tell us that we did not need the 7460.
Okay, good. That was my only, that was the question.
easy.
Because
Oh, my
you said
goodness.
you were going to talk to that, and then you didn't in the presentation, and I thought I'd bring it back up and see if you had that
Yeah,
filed.
just to address that, FAA, DOD, U.S. Army Corps of Engineer, all addressed and all filed.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and no issues on any of them.
Okay, good, thanks. And then I had A couple of questions. Hail came up. We get large hail out here. What are the panels rated at? What size? And then what happens if it gets hit by hail larger than what the capacity is?
Yeah, so these are tested with a 44.7 millimeters, which is close to a 2-inch hail ball at a 30 mile per hour speed. And they're finding that there is no damage, no major damage visible. So there's no cracking, there's no anything from that large of a hail. If it is coming larger and harder, if like a really crazy storm happens, which isn't typical here, but it can happen. It can break.
Yeah, we get them in Elbert County, I promise you.
I mean, the hail over 2 inches is not, it's not gonna be a yearly event. It's not gonna be a common thing. And if those are broken, we are replacing them because they will not be working as well. So we would be replacing them.
Gotcha. And then
Oh,
insurance.
also,
I assume insurance would cover it. It's all insured. You get a major hailstorm, just like our roof on our house is insured for hail. So it'd probably be the same process, I would imagine.
yeah, so the glass is very thick. We also have a specific type of racking system that actually tilts at a higher stow angle. So we can tilt it during a hailstorm specifically to a higher thing, so it stands up more, right? So it's not getting hit face on. It's getting hit like only from a couple edges. So that's an extra precaution added.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Another question is regard to the 40 years. Is there anything in the paperwork or guarantee that you guys are going to own and operate this facility for the next 40 years, or is that something that you guys can sell 5 years down the road or 2 years down the road or immediately after approval? Is there anything in the documents that we have?
I don't believe there is. We are an IPP, which is an independent power producer. That means we develop, build, own, and operate our facilities. So we take on investors for most of our facilities. So we remain the majority owner, but we take on tax equity partners, other equity, debt, to get them built. Typical project financing structure. But there's nothing requiring us to continue to own the facility, but that is our intent.
But you could divest of the facility if you so choose with a different business plan 5 years from now. Potentially.
Well, in concept, power plants that produce electricity for the grid elsewhere, they get sold. Businesses get sold. This is a valuable project, and we have every intent of holding on to it.
Well, the reason I bring that up was because the community focus, and it appeared you guys had a positive community focus, and you guys were involved with the community, and apparently there's nothing that says you can't walk away from the project, and that would be a shame down the road if that happened. That's all. That's the reason I bring that up.
Sure. And we're open to conditions of approval that reflect the letter that we provided. We are committed to the community working group and the fund that would back that group. So $100,000 per year for 3 years for the first part of the projects. We'll make sure we get off on the right foot with the community, invest in community needs, fire equipment, et cetera. So we're willing to commit to that. We also have a scholarship fund that's set up over the life of the project. We could figure out other ways to pull that forward if it helps to make that more certain. But our goal is to commit to the community for 40 years because we're going to be here.
So the fire equipment can be quite expensive. One tanker truck, $1.5 million with a 1,000-gallon capacity. So the personnel, I don't know how they're staffed, their volunteer fire department, that gets expensive on a year-to-year basis. So any staffing or any additional equipment, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your community involvement. I just wanted to see if there was any guarantees that you guys are going to be actively involved after the project is approved or down the road. So that's why I asked that question. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one recap from yesterday, and it was in regards to that geotechnical engineering report that we referenced. That I did find the copy that was revised in 2024 So 5 years lapsed from 2019 to 2024, and a final site development plan was not provided at the time of this report. So you had 5 years to provide that report. Apparently, it wasn't provided based on this. So maybe you can speak to it in a second. But it also said design traffic loads and volumes were not available for our analysis. And then it went on to say that the following design section does not take into account heavy traffic that may occur during construction. So my question is, within those 5 years, why, and this was updated fairly recently, within the last 6 months, 7 months, why were those documents or that information not provided to Terracon?
So I'll answer the first one. I might call some SMEs up for the second two, but the first one regarding the final site plan, and that's, it's a broad sentence, but we didn't have the final site plan comes from McCarthy. That's our EPC. So we are
I'm sorry, comes from who?
McCarthy, our EPC, that spoke yesterday. So they're the construction engineers. They have the final site plan. It looks very similar. They're actually using they use ours as a template. Pretty copy paste, but it can't be considered final until they've reviewed everything. And so that report was, you do geotech reports, very often. As 2019, we were nowhere near an EPC contract, but 2024 obviously getting closer. But you do these geotech reports for all of our projects. I own the Colorado market. We do these geotech reports 6 years before projects are built. So it's very, very, very rare to ever have a final site plan when geotech is being performed. What they do is these boring locations. So we give them a general site plan that we have internally, maybe a 30 or 40% design package. And they will navigate their boring locations according to where the panels look to be at that time. I don't remember your second and third question exactly, but
Yeah, the second one was design traffic loads and volumes were not available for our analysis.
My name is Jim Barber, and I work for McCarthy, Project Soup. So I think what you're asking on that part is, it's a design loads on the road inside the site.
Okay.
So once we get the roads designed and know where they're going, it's what's going on the roads to be maintained on inside the project site. Like an example, it would take 6 inches of class 6 road base to maintain inside the site while we are transporting the trucks inside the site. And then after that, it goes to minor maintenance because they'll be using pickups, driving around site to replace modules if they get broken or something, or any maintenance that need to be done at that point. That's where that traffic design comes inside that site.
Okay. It does say access road recommendations is what I'm looking at.
And that's the access into the site.
Yeah.
So that would be that road leaving 154 or Kiowa Bennett coming into that site. It's part of the site road coming in. Nothing on Kiowa Bennett or 154.
Okay.
yeah, I'll also add to our traffic analysis. I think there's some overlap in your question too. Our traffic analysis, your question's a little bit out of scope of a full geotech report. It's more of a traffic analysis question, which is provided in the presentation, or in the
Yeah, I saw the traffic. I think I mentioned it yesterday about I think it was 16,800 vehicle trips for one class of vehicle during installation. And then I think there was 4,800 vehicle trips for the 20,000 to 50,000 pound vehicles during the 6 months of construction. So that was outside. So I recognize that was outside of the facility on the Kiowa Bennett Road.
Yes, it could be.
So that's quite a bit of traffic.
Trucks to pickups, cars during the construction time.
Yeah. So there's significant traffic on Kiowa Bennett Road then.
But yeah, we want to make sure as we design the roads inside the site that they will handle also inside the site for the trucks and stuff while we're building the site.
And I'll also add too, that it is temporary, as mentioned, 12 to 15 months, and then self-sufficient, as well as just last night I was reviewing our updated road use agreement that came from the county. We have got that turned, and it is now on us, and that bond is a part of that. And so that prevents, or that signifies pretty much zero risk for the county on the road use. It's a number that's, significant, and so that is required, and that will be agreed to.
Okay. I'm not sure if I have anything else or not. Oh, On page 2186 of the packet, there's a questionnaire in there, and it asks, do you know of specific chemicals that are present or once were present at the subject property? And it says yes, but no explanation was given.
There was a gas well.
Okay. There was just nothing there. It just said yes, and then there was supposed to be an explanation, and there was no explanation. That I saw. Maybe it was in there, maybe I missed it, but I didn't.
Former
see
gas well.
Former gas well, okay. I think that's all I had.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay, we're going to, Commissioner, do you have anything else, sir, before we jump?
One more that came up in discussion this morning and a little bit yesterday was the office that will be utilized by the 2 to 4 employees and have a kitchenette and restroom facilities, and that water would be brought onto the site. What is the source for that water?
Yeah. At this time, I mean, so at this exact second, it would either be trucked in similar to construction, same type of scope, or we would have to go through the Elbert County permit process to get an on-site O&M well. It's the only two options.
Okay. So there's nothing in agreement yet of how that water will be provided?
No, not an agreement at this time, no, sir.
Okay.
And I will add, too, that is a little bit closer to construction while working with McCarthy is those types of details we find out.
Anything else, sir? All right, so with that, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. It's 11:06, so we'll be back in 15 minutes. Thank you. A couple of minutes on a separate incident there. We're back in session at 11:25. I want to ask Jennifer to put up some stuff on the board there. You taking care of that now? Before we go forward, I've got 2 questions for you, sir, if you don't mind. So is it true that if we denied this here today, that it would go before the PUC? Or you would take it before the PUC? Okay, thank you. Hi.
Good afternoon. Just a quick reminder, my name is Elbert, I'm not the council, but this is a land use specific. This is not before the PUC. That's a completely separate process. So if this was denied today, our appeal option would be to bring it to the 106.
Thank you. All right, and the last question I've got for you, sir. So if this was approved, would you agree to a secondary road there for emergency evacuations to be built to county standards in the event that there was some major emergency there that the people could get out and get away? Yes.
Yeah, I think there's a frontage road there that, yes, we would commit to that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
all right. And then as far as the barrier goes, and we talked about it, we understand the part about the trees and the fire hazards of that and that kind of thing with wildland fire. But would you agree to consider some type of barrier around there that it would be aesthetically pleasing to the people? Is that something you would consider?
Certainly, we would consider that.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you. All right, we're ready to move forward. Thank you for putting that on the board real quick. So we're going to need 2 motions here. One is to approve the 1041. So is there a motion to approve the 1041? And when we do that, also I'm going to ask for a roll call on the votes as well.
Yes, Chair, I'll make a motion. Just to clarify, I'm sure we all have comments that we'd like to make. A project this size, I think it's important that we explain our reasoning to the citizens. Would you prefer that to happen after the motion is made, before the vote is taken?
I think the motion needs to be made first, and then we'll allow for.
Okay, I agree.
the
Just wanted to clarify.
Yes, sir.
So with that, Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve Sundance Solar Major event permit number 1041 permit 1041-2024-1310.
Is there a second? All right, with that, there is a motion. I will second the motion. All in favor? Sign of aye.
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 Nay.
Approved. Motion carries. Let's do a roll call vote, sir.
Works for me.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
Commissioner Buck,
Nay.
Commissioner Schroeder,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Aye. All right, next motion here is on the SUR. And I'm sorry, I got the number here, 2024-028. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I'll move we approve the Sundance Solar Special Use by Review number SUR 2024-0028.
All right, is there a second? Any further discussion on this?
Yeah, I would love a chance to explain where we're at on this. To begin with, I would like to apologize to Mr. Eamon and his wife for a personal attack that happened yesterday. Historically, this board has not allowed such things to happen. It has been interrupted, regardless of the outcome, regardless of the application before us. Personal attacks should not be tolerated, and so I hope you will pass that on, and we will try to do better in the future. One thing for people to realize what this land use hearing is, we sit as a quasi-judicial board, and so we have to look at the application versus what our regulations are and measure it by that standard, just as though any other judicial hearing would take place. It's what you would almost sense how a judge would look at an application. And so that we have to put our personal thoughts, our personal feelings aside and just look at the material and the facts that are before us. And so in doing that, my personal thoughts about renewable energy may or may not be separate than where this project is, but that has to be set aside. And I have to look at specifically at the material that is before us and how it matches up to our regulations. One of the reasons that we're even in this situation where this project is coming forward, it came up yesterday, is the renewable mandate from the state. It is a requirement for all electrical providers to reach a certain standard of renewable energy by a certain year. And I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's coming up, and it has to be done. And so this is mandated from the state. If it's something that needs to be addressed at the state, which perhaps it does, that's where we need to take this to, if we're interested in not having that mandate. But we are where we are with it, and we have to look at the situation realistically. I'm also a big proponent for property rights, and that the individual property owner can have the most and highest, best use for their property as they see fit. Now, we have to make sure that it doesn't do undue burden on the surrounding area, and that's part of what this whole process is about, is to making sure that takes place. And so part of I believe, our role here is to work as much as we can with a landowner in any application to help them get accomplished what they'd like to do with their property. And so we work through that process. Staff works tirelessly with the applicant before it comes even before the Planning Commission, and then on to us, with making that thought in mind. So my reasoning for supporting this project is extensive. As presented yesterday by staff, the comp plan is in line with it, with 3 items within the comp plan of what the definition of the or direction the county needs to go with that. And we it's been mentioned that we're working on a new one, but we don't have a new one. We have a current one, and so those are the standards that we have to look at and where we are. As far as then it flows down to actual the regulations. Within our summary packet here, there are 12 items of general approval criteria, 7 items for specifics, and 2 for major facilities. And so as I've studied through this and looked at what everything that staff has given to us, considering evidence that's been given to us from the applicant and taking into account the comments from citizens and from Planning Commission, I do find that all these different items have been met by the applicant. And so that makes it pretty straightforward on the direction for where I set. I think it's interesting, the economic impact is tremendous for many entities. The commitment that's been made by Cypress Solar to be good community partners in so many different areas, even already, before they're even up and running, is commendable. I look forward to that continuing. And then a lot of the details that we've talked about with regards to wildlife and fire and soils and everything. We're not experts up here in all these different areas. And that's the reason that we have referral agencies from all these different places that can take a look at the application through the lens of their expertise. And then we can rely on that advice of what they think needs to happen, either to improve it, or if it's impossible for it to improve, then they would recommend a denial on it. But the referral agencies from Parks and Wildlife to the soils, environmental impact, drainage studies. We've talked extensively about the fire issues. I think there was a great point made this morning by the applicant that this facility can act as a fire break. We know that within our county, when we have a grass fire, prairie fire, they're very difficult to get ahead of. And I'm sorry the captain had to leave, so I'm sure he could corroborate this. But we don't use water to put the fire out when it's a prairie fire. Our departments work in coordination with our Public Works and Road and Bridge Department to get our graders out there into the fields and cut fire breaks. And then really if it gets up into a hilly part or a treed part, that's where the fire departments have to go to work. But in open areas, like what I witnessed when I drove 154 all the way to Skyview and back, is pretty wide open country, where what will be stopping the fire there will be our graders cutting those fire breaks. And I don't see that risk of fire is any greater with this facility. And I think one could make the argument it's less. And so I think that is terrific aspect to think about. With that, I'm pleased about the able to use the easement of core and being able to have that secondary exit, so to speak, in the case that was made. So that is to me a real benefit that it's been discussed here today. But the bottom line for me is that this will be an overall benefit to the county in many ways. And once again, falling on the private property aspect of this, for the applicant to use their property as they see fit. And I would say the same thing and fight for anybody else in this room who is wanting to put a project on their property, regardless what it was. If they met the rules and the regulations, then they have the right also to do that on their property. And so those are my reasonings for being in favor, or voting in favor of this project.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Buck?
Nay.
Commissioner Schroeder?
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Aye. Can I make a comment here at this time? Okay. I'm voting aye because of, number one, I feel like our hands are fairly well tied with the state mandates on renewable energy. Property rights are at the top of my list, and this is my district, and I understand that. But the county is going to benefit from this facility being there. As Commissioner Schroeder stated, and I echo everything that he said, you don't fight those type of fires with water. However, grassland fires of that type of nature, yes, you would. With that being said, that this facility is going to supply this county with power, and it also help if we have blackouts in this county. This will also supply for that. We have a lot of additional homes coming into this county. We have 9,300 lots that have been approved in the over the last year. That'll take probably 20 years to develop. But in the meantime, we're going to have power to do that. So with that, that's my reason for voting yes in this particular case.
I'd like to make a comment on why I voted the way I did. First of all, the Planning Commission voted 7-2 against the project. Those citizens that represent that Planning Commission are representative of the larger community, 3 members from each district. I feel they spoke loud and clear on what the community wants and their vision for the county moving forward. I don't feel this is a compatible project with the surrounding area and with the neighbors. It obviously is going to devalue their property. The amount of devaluation is debatable, but I think that's a viable argument that they have. And I'm going to actually quote some of our guidelines, SUR guidelines, Article 3, E, 5A, and 5F, 1041 Article 17, B4, 1041 Article 17, M4A, 1041 Article 17, M1E, and Article 2, H1. So I'm voting nay, and those are the reasons why.
Okay. All right. With that, we have the motion, a second, and it looks like it carries. And with that, then I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Sure, I move we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We are adjourned. The time is 11:41. Thank you.